It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full forward. Becky's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
All thanks to Mequicare, proud partner of the VAFA.
Makes a name for himself with these long bombs from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
This is for the love of the game, thanks to Mequicare, looking after 16,500 Victorians every weekend throughout the year. And what a year it's been in the VAFA. And sure enough, if we look at Premier Men's, gentlemen, both the finals and relegation races will be decided on the last day of the home and away season. Premier B still up in the air as well. Premier C, some drama. Through the divisions, all the way up and down. We're going to talk about it over the next hour and a bit. There was last gasp victories and heartbreaking losses. We've had finals starting up. It's all happening, Paddy Grindlay. It's a wonderful time of the year as we welcome you.
Hello, Jason Bennett. Yeah, it's wonderful to be beside you, particularly for this week. We'll get stuck into things over the next little while, as you mentioned, but yeah, some remarkable results that have kept this season in play for so many teams. We're going to have a pre-elimination final in round 18 for Premier Men's. We're going to have a relegation dogfight featuring St Bernard's and Collegians at opposite ends of the city. It's just going to be a wonderful weekend of footy. Matthew Donald, hello to you.
Paddy, Jason, hello to you and hello to everyone tuning in. You have something for everyone this weekend as we gear up for finals. Can't wait to get the teeth sunk into it. Going to be a beauty.
Let's get stuck into Premier Men's straight off the top. And as we mentioned, both the finals races and the relegation race will be decided this coming Saturday, the last day of the home and away season. And the pivotal result from round 17 was at the Snake Pit. St Bernard's gave their chances of surviving in the top flight an enormous boost with their biggest win of the season. It was an incredible 83-point victory that sends a spiralling Old Haileybury into a virtual elimination final against reigning champs Old Scotch on the final day. They entered, Matty, without a victory over any other team, the Snow Dogs, other than De La Salle since round 4. But they were on song from the outset.
They were absolutely outstanding, Jace. Their pressure right from the get-go was right up there. Their defensive setup behind the ball was so impressive. Their ability to switch the ball from one end of the ground to the other. It looked like it was St Bernard's who were pushing for a final spot rather than Old Haileybury. The way they played, it was such an impressive performance from them.
Jackson Haitley, who came back to play his first game of the season from Essendon's VFL team. First quarter, 13 touches, 5 clearances just to set the tone.
Sure.
And they smashed the Bloods 15-4 in clearances early. They led by 3 goals. Haitley had another 12 disposals and 4 clearances in the second term. They kicked 5-3. The Bloods couldn't find their radar. They were just off. They kicked 3-8. Stefanakis kicked 3 of the 4 first half goals for Old Haileybury, who trailed by 24 points at the half. And for others who weren't at the game watching, Matty, you were there calling the action, but Paddy, I know you're having a look at the scores on Play HQ. Just couldn't believe what you were seeing.
Well, it is the narrative of the weekend, and we'll get stuck into this across Premier B as well. But these VFL players that have now got no footy to play for their clubs as finals get into their first week this weekend, everything's just started to really kick up. Jackson Haitley coming back. He did the same for St Bernard's late last year in a game against Old Melburnians where they didn't win. They were beaten, I think, by a couple of points by the OMs, but survived in top flight. He is a class above. He was a class above that day back in 2024. He was a class above clearly over Old Haileybury. And unfortunately for the Bloods, it continues this narrative post-bye where they've just not quite been up to scratch, unfortunately. While other teams around them have improved and teams below them have improved, they've stopped. They've hit a brick wall and now they're fighting for survival as far as their position in the four goes.
Yeah, the Snow Dogs were out to 37 points at the last change, then blew them off the park in the last quarter, Matty. They had multiple injuries and no bench, and in the end it was 8-7 to 1-3 in the final term. 83-point win. Haitley with 47 touches, 23 contested, 11 clearances, 7 inside 50s and a goal. The Bloods were equal second at halfway mark of the season, 3 games clear of the Cardinals at that point, but they've lost 6 of their last 8. They're clinging to fourth by their fingernails, and now they've got to defeat the reigning premiers in a virtual elimination final this week if they're going to play finals.
Yeah, no, it was a stunning performance. Don't think anyone expected that we were going to get this sort of margin between these two sides. You mentioned Old Haileybury. They had their chances, particularly in the first half. It was 14 scores to 13 at halftime. in favour of Old Haileybury. So they certainly had more than enough opportunities, and you were sort of just waiting for them to flick the switch and start finding the radar and get back into the match. But it never really did. Andreas Stefanakis, he was outstanding. Actually, the battle between him and Xavier Smith was quite a fascinating one. On paper, it looks like Stefanakis kicked five goals and won the battle. But Xavier Smith certainly had some very good moments defensively for the Snow Dogs as well. So that was a really fascinating duel between those two.
So the Dogs now a game clear of Collegians with one to play. However, the Lions played D-La in the final round and do have the superior percentage, almost 11%. So the likelihood remains that the Snow Dogs will need to pull off another top four upset this weekend and roll the informed St Kevin's if they are to avoid relegation. But they will enter that game riding a wave of momentum and belief. It was a very happy Steve Alessio after the game.
Yeah, happy with his most complete four-quarter performance of the season and his players rising to the challenge. Not just the VFL players, but some senior players coming back as well. I think of someone like Luke Said, who we haven't seen much of at top flight level this year, sees the opportunity and brought the physical contested brand of footy that they've been missing across the past little while, and they're going to take it into next week. Nothing to lose, everything to play for. So really excited for this game of footy. It's going to be a ripper.
Gee, it's a big job for Daniel Ward to get his players up again this week, Matty. They've lost 6 of their last 8, but as we saw in the first half of the year, their best footy is outstanding. Can they find it again in time?
Well, if they can, they'll give themselves every opportunity. And Daniel Ward was happy with the way that the game started in terms of how Old Haileybury fought it out, but they weren't able to make the most of their opportunities, while St Bernard's on the other end were, as I said, it was 9-4 to 4-10 at quarter time. But in the end, at that second half, he paid credit to Steve Alessio and his boys. It was the Snow Dogs who just wanted it more, and the game got away from the Bloods, given the fact that they had a few injuries in the end, nobody on the bench, as you mentioned. It was a pretty physical encounter as well at the Snake Pit. The toll was pretty strong on the Bloods in the end from a fitness point of view.
Well, that win from the Snow Dogs puts additional relegation pressure on Collegians. The Lions battled bravely against Old Brighton at Brighton Beach Oval, but like so many more before them, couldn't quite go the full 4 quarters. They fell short late. They got Luke Nelson and Josh Walker back, did the Lions, from VFL duty, and they had just as much footy as the Tunners early, but 2 goals to Will Lewis saw Old Brighton up by 15 points at the first break. The second term, Collegians, good performance. They took control around the stoppages, won the territory, finally got some reward for effort. Campbell Walker was outstanding in that term, had 11 touches and a goal. They kicked 4 goals to 2. Got it back within 2 points at the half, Collegians, and the scoreboard remained tight throughout the third term, 2 goals apiece. Both sides had, players stepping up in big moments, and the last quarter was actually much closer than the final score suggested. Will Lewis gave the host a 13-point lead 3 minutes in. The Lions kicked 2 goals in 2.5 minutes. Alex Lukic kicked a miraculous goal. It was a brilliant goal out of the ruck. So scores were level at the 9-minute mark of the last quarter, but as we so often see, Brighton just find a way to win at Fortress Brighton. And they'd lost Harry Hill to injury, but they still did so again. They kicked 4 goals, the last 4 of the game, and in the end they got some breathing room and then ran away for an 18 straight win at home. 2 complete home and away campaigns, unbeaten at Brighton Beach Oval. And Will Lewis is one of the stories of the weekend. Paddy, he kicked 5. He looms as a big watch during September. His Footscray VFL teams won the minor premiership, so he's going to be called up by the Bulldogs. He's had a fantastic year at VFL level. Mind you, Joey Campilli came back from Sandringham. He kicked 3. So once again, it might be the youngster who's leading them up forward in September. And a similar story, unfortunately, for Collegians. Really competitive against arguably the best team in the competition, but just not quite able to go the full 4 quarters and get the 4 points. So they sit in 9th. Their destiny now is out of their hands in the race to avoid relegation. They have to beat De La Salle and then hope that St Kevin's do them a favour against St Bernard's. And it's almost punishment enough. The Purple Army are going to have to barrack for Scob this weekend, which is just unthinkable.
You almost want to get Josh Herriott on the phone, the Collegians, tragic that he is, and ask him how he feels about barracking for St Kevin's. I don't think he feels particularly good about it. But yeah, I do feel for Collegians because they've found some form at the back end of the year. But unfortunately for them, they've run into the top 2 at the wrong time. They got so close to the Zavs. They got so close to the Tunners. But I don't think you can critique them for dropping both of those games. We've seen what Brighton and Old Xavier has been able to do this season. Yeah, Lewis is interesting. He's such a talented footballer. He played in the grand final last year against Old Scotch. It does feel that given Footscray have the Western Bulldogs and that they probably may not play finals, and then what happens with selection, maybe some guys who've been playing some AFL footy, I think of Jordan Croft might come back to play in the VFL finals because I believe he would have certainly qualified.
He would have, but Will's been there all year.
He has.
Like he's held his spot even
Correct.
when the AFL guys have been around them. He's just had a super year. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's one of the, the VFL giveth and the VFL taketh away. So it's going to be a factor for pretty much all these sides, really. We've seen and we'll talk about Scotch in a minute, the impact of having an influx of VFL talent. But look, Marcel Bruin was full of praise for Geordie McKenzie and the Collegians guys.
Yeah, it was a pressure thing, which is what we've seen from Collegians as they've had this late season renaissance that still may not see them escape the relegation zone. The Tunners weren't as clean as they wanted to be, especially early, but were able to get some decent inside 50s across the second 60 minutes after half-time and able to grind out a good win. Hamish Dix had a really strong season. I think he's going to go under the radar again. He had that shocking head injury. We had to have some plastic surgery earlier in the season, but he's such a dynamic player, both across half-forward and through the midfield. And the other one that Marcel Bruin shouted out, and I love to see this guy's name in the report, Gus Cork. He made his debut, I believe, against St Kevin's in a loss just before the double bye. He was one of those guys that they had to pull out of reserves when it felt like half the team was in Europe, and he's had such a strong year at fullback, which is a position where they've looked a touch shakier than they would have liked to, I think, old Brighton. He's been unreal, and obviously Will Lewis and Joey Campilli, superb up forward. I think Joey Campilli, he could be the story of the finals. He is above the level as a full forward in this comp after taking out the rising star last year and playing such a strong year with Sandringham that he's got some AFL clubs interested in him.
Nice problem to have. Lose Will Lewis, but just move the magnets around and move Joey Campilli
number 19
into the slot. From a Collegians perspective, Matty, it was the same old story, unfortunately, for them. Honourable losses don't necessarily see you stay up.
No, and we've mentioned the challenge of playing Brighton in Brighton, and Geordie McKenzie acknowledged that as well in the post-game, that that's certainly not an easy task, but was very happy with the performance that the boys showed in terms of the spirit that they played with. But again, disappointing not to get the result. They pretty much went the distance with old Brighton and have done so against the top two in the last 2 weeks. They've still walked away empty-handed. Love the second term in particularly. They trailed at quarter time but managed to fight their way back to an even kill by the main break, did Collegians. So Geordie McKenzie was very happy with that, but paid credit to Brighton for being really good in the second half when it mattered most. Set aside praise for a number of individuals as well from Collegians to Geordie McKenzie, including Josh Walker, Jonty McGuinness around the midfield as well, and McGuinness in the ruck. Scott Bealby and Jasper Davey in the back line as well were two others who stood quite tall for the Lions.
Well, the other byproduct of old Haileybury's big loss was it left the door ajar for the chasing pack. And Old Scotch kicked it wide open. A superb performance against Uni Blacks at Melbourne Uni with a bunch of big-name VFL stars returning. They looked like their 2024 premiership selves all of a sudden and sent a chilling message to all the other finals contenders. If they make it, look out. They were sharp from the outset. They just used the footy a little bit better. They went at 64% by foot, just 45% for the Blacks. Old Scotch were able to control possession and dictate terms. And as we know, when they can play that uncontested style of footy, Paddy, and they can take control and they can chip it around and they can move it around and they can spread the field, they are incredibly difficult to stop. They were up by 51 points at the half. They maintained their pace. They kicked another 5 unanswered goals in the third term and 5-1 in the last term. They won it by 105 points over the Blacks, their largest victory since round 17 of 2023. And here's the other thing about their performance. They had 8 players who had 27 disposals or more, led by Henry Brown with 36. Hugo Brommel found plenty of the footy. He lined up for the Cards for the first time since 2023 after spending the last 2 seasons at Coburg. He had 9 touches in the opening term and 28 for the day. Tyler Sellers came back from Essendon. He booted 5. So there's this influx of talent, which is, they've just sort of powered up at the right time and really the right time. They needed the results above them to go their way. And I've got to put my hand up and say, 2 weeks ago, I said their premiership
I wondered if
defence
this would make the article.
Is officially over because at this point, they were 2 games plus a heap of percent out with 3 games to play. And you just don't come back from that. And somehow the results above them have just worked out. Well, they've taken care of Blacks there, but Haileybury have lost a couple. And suddenly they're in a position where if they beat Haileybury this weekend, and they'll be overwhelming favourites to do it, they're in.
More than that. I think 2 weeks ago we floated that they were in an unlikely relegation scrap rather than.
Well, they were. They dropped 4 in a row at this stage.
Yep.
There was absolutely no sign of it. And then you mentioned, I remember very clearly, he said, these guys, the cavalry is arriving. But we said, it's probably too late. They're going to get there and the battle's going to be over. They only needed Blacks or Haileybury to win a game in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, it's a big cheerio, I think, to the University Blues for accounting for the Blacks last week and then also for the way that old Haileybury season has fallen at this stage. 9 VFL players for Old Scotch this weekend, or last weekend, I should say, which is an overwhelming amount and a few guys who've played VFL footy before. But I do want to mention, because we do get caught up on the VFL guys, but this is something that Mark Nunn has told us now for 2 years, is that this is the goal of the club. They want to be able to play at a level where their players get noticed by VFL clubs and they get the opportunity to have a run. So you look at someone like James Tarrant, who's worked so hard to try and find his place at North Melbourne. It's finally happened for him this year. And he comes back and he's had such a dominant year up forward. But that's been the result of 2 or 3 years of really hard work and doing the pre-seasons at VFL clubs, playing the intra-clubs, not being selected to make the list. But finally he's there, and now Scotch get the reward at the end of the season. So I think it's a tip of the hat pretty much to their player development system that they do get all these guys back. But it's going to be an interesting year the way it shakes out, because all of these guys I expect are going to be fronting up again this weekend against Old Haileybury, maybe give or take a couple. But of course, all of them won't qualify. Hugo Brummel certainly won't. Ned McGuinness certainly won't. Yep. And I'm sure there's a couple of others.
Yeah, they'll help them get there and then hand off to the guys who've done the heavy lifting throughout the year, which
Correct.
is the way that it should be. And, we've said from the very start, I think the very first episode of the pod we did, in fact, it might have even been in our post-match wrap last year, we said the X factor in Premier Men's this season is Scotch and its VFL players.
Yep.
And when we saw that they had 15 on the list signed, we knew at this point it was always going to be, can they win enough games to get them in a position where those guys will come back late in the year and be able to get the job done? And the answer may be by the skin of their teeth. Yep. They might have timed their run just perfectly, but this season's had so many ebbs and flows. Who knows? Haileybury might bob up this week and end Old Scotch's premiership defence right here and go completely against the odds. You just don't know. What is Mark Nat thinking at the moment? Because it is a very interesting roller coaster that he's been on all year. He said, as you mentioned, he's all about giving guys opportunities at the next level. But, gee, there must have been times he's been driving home on a Saturday night going, I wish I had player X, Y, Z. What were we thinking having all these guys sign in the VFL?
Well, they did make mention of the relegation conversation that took place 2 weeks ago, and now they have the opportunity to play finals.
Incredible.
And play Old Haileybury in what is effectively an elimination final. He did draw attention to the 8 changes that he made to the squad and how that could have affected the synergy and the ability to connect across the ground, because that has been the case in a few games I've watched Scotch play when they've brought back VFL players. It's not quite clunked into place, but that certainly happened. The system, they were all across it. They executed the job, 4-quarter performance, and how 100-point winners at this time of the year against a very good University Blacks team as I've seen them. That's a significant result. Dale Bauer for the Uni Blacks, though, Matthew Donald, not quite as pleased.
Yeah, no, it's a tough day for Uni Blacks because that effectively ends their season as well. Can't make finals from here, barring ridiculous results. And he acknowledged the fact that it is that time of year where a lot of those VFL players are suddenly released back to VAFA clubs, and made mention of the fact that Old Scotch were able to load up and were very impressive in their performance as a result. He did also pay tribute to Joel Ernest, who was awarded the James Green Medal for his 150th game for the Blacks. So a great achievement there by Joel. And just the one game left now for Uni Blacks, and that'll be against Old Zavs on the final game of the season.
Yeah, disappointing way for their brave revival to end. They had a really gritty mid-season revival. It was one of the stories of the year that we really enjoyed covering. It petered out with losses to St Kevin's, the Blues, and now the Cardinals, who have come from nowhere, as we said, to potentially turn the premiership race on its head. But plenty of positives for the Blacks to take out of 2025. They managed to turn a year around that started poorly. They had all those exciting wins through the middle of the season, got a head of steam up, and hopefully something that helps them retain players and attract new ones for 26.
Yeah, look, to be completely honest, the way that 2024 ended for them and the way that 2025 started, I had them not quite written down in text, but certainly penciled in to be a team that was going to go down in 2025. So the way they've been able to put things together, especially down back, and find some stars, Kane Loftus springs to mind, who they've brought in, but also some great natural improvement on the list. Someone like Xavier Chalkley's had a superb year down back. Sam McKenzie's gone from strength to strength, and some of the coaching levers that they've been able to pull. I think Campbell Moorfield might be enjoying his life now as a full forward. He's kicked some goals for them over the back end of the year. It's been a terrific year for the University Blacks, where I think they have just stabilised a little bit and hopefully can run into 2026 and have a really good shot at making finals.
Old Zabs remained in the race for the minor premiership. They ended the University Blues 3-game winning streak in no uncertain terms at Toorak Park. Zabs entered having won 9 of their last 10, and despite some injury concerns to their frontline players, they dominated the contest early. They led by 14 points at the first break. The Blues then responded, evened it up in the second term, and it was a really entertaining second term. Actually, 10 goals of entertaining footy. 3 goals in 7 minutes during time on gave Zabs 6 goals to 4. They got out to 29 points at half-time. The game tightened up again out of nowhere, though. Went from this free-flowing 10-goal second term to just 1 goal apiece in the third term. The Blues got on top around the stoppages, but they couldn't hit targets. They were 48% for the quarter, and entering forward 50, they just kept butchering it. And then was 31 points at the last break, and out of nowhere, the hosts, as they do, we've seen it so many times this year, Old Zabs, they just put the game to bed, a withering burst. They kicked 5 goals in 6.5 minutes early in the final term. They've just got this incredible capacity to flick the switch. An impressive flex from them. In the end, they kicked 9-2 in the last term. So it was a 74-point win. It was a game that was much closer than that for most of the afternoon. We talk about players returning. Well, Sterling Phipps-Parsons came back from Carlton. He had 25 disposals, 10 tackles, 5 clearances and 3 goals. Very handy addition to the old Zavs lineup. And for the Blues, want to mention youngster Mitch Lloyd, who was best on. He's a VAFA Anytime Fitness Rising Star nominee this week. He's had a really, really great year. And the Blues, well, a little bit like the Blacks. We weren't exactly sure what we're going to get from them this year. And at times, they looked incredible. At times, they looked like they were in trouble. But in the end, like the Blacks, they sort of finish in the mid-table limbo.
Yeah, we've been following Matt Smith's story in his first year as coach of the University Blues, and he admitted to myself and Hugo Higginbotham and Brent Sternberg during the week that he has developed as a coach this year. He's had to take a little bit more control in some places, worry about things a little bit less in others, and as a result, through the back end of the year, he's found more connection with his group and been able to get a better performance out of them week to week. So they have escaped that relegation discussion, which is a key thing for them.
And what did he have to say after this particular performance? Because, as I said, 3-game winning streak, but in the end, they got blown out.
Yeah, pretty disappointed. The Zavs clearly a better team on the day, very polished team, and they gave them a lot of opportunities to run up and down the ground and to switch angles, and that wasn't what Matt Smith wanted to see. They battled hard, the University Blues. The intent was there. It just wasn't their day with the football in hand. And
from a Zavs perspective, Matty, Dan Donati must be pleased because the Blues, as we know, we said that 3-game winning streak, they're a dangerous team capable of stretching anyone.
Yeah, well, he made mention of that as well, that their form over the last month and a half has been up there with the best in the competition. So he knew that his boys were going to be in for a fight at the weekend, but was very happy with the way that they played, their pressure and the pace that they applied to the game right from the opening bounce, and being able to manage the lead as well throughout the course of the match, because for a while there, the Blues just weren't going away, but managed to save them off and then kick clear at the end to record a pretty healthy win.
Another few injury concerns, though, for the old Zavarians. Nothing too serious. Both Tex Wanganeen and Campbell Lane finished the game on the bench, iced up, but hopefully just some shoulder stingers was the report in the club rooms. Post-game, they are, of course, going to be without Sam Fisher for the remainder of the year, and Marcus Stavro, who is their co-skipper, is trying to fight his way back from a Grade 3 syndesmosis. Right. He's hopeful of playing in the finals. We spoke to him at halftime up at Toorak Park in the timekeeper's box, where Hugo Higginbotham had to ensure he had to press the siren whenever he got waved at. But yeah, Marcus is going to move everything he possibly can into featuring in finals this season. Remembering the old Zavs haven't played in September since 2016.
Yeah, it's incredible, that.
Do we know any more about Alex Spralia?
Just a corky, we believe. So it'll depend because, of course, the old Zavarians, they can't move. They're going to be a top 2 team. They're going to play the Tunners in that second semi-final. So there's a question, and we'll speak about this, I'm sure, over the remainder of the pod with other results going around the other divisions. But there is a question whether the Zavs just pull a couple of their sorer boys. I think of Campbell Lane with that shoulder stinger. I think of Spralia a week removed from the corky. I also think of Harry Hill, who himself suffered a corky in Old Brighton's win over Collegians. Yeah,
there might be a bit of that going on this weekend. The final game of the weekend was the only one that couldn't impact the ladder. It was St Kevin's continuing their tune-up for September, a 102-point domination of De La Salle at TH King. And the writing was on the wall early. St Kevin's burst out of the gates. They kicked 7 goals in the opening turn. They led by 32 points at the first change. That's his first quarter from Jack Marnie, another VFL player or ex-VFL player. Eye-popping 16 disposals, 6 clearances and 2 goals in the first term. 16 and 2 in the opening quarter. Now, credit to De La Salle. They holded the momentum in the second term. It just had 3 goals for the quarter between the two sides, and 2 of them actually went to De La. Rob Amendola, who, full credit to him, hasn't he battled against the Tide all year? He had 11 touches and 4 clearances in that second quarter for De La Salle. So they were within 5 goals at the main break and once again proved themselves capable of hanging with a really good team for an extended period. But then St Kevin's came out with a renewed focus in the third term. They were just so precise. They were so efficient with the footy. They kicked 6 goals to 1, got it out to 62 points, and then another 8 goals to 2 in the last term. And we speak about Jack Marnie's opening quarter. Well, Luke Winter finished in the last quarter with 18 touches, 9 clearances and 2 goals for the quarter. Insane.
I'll take that in a game.
Insane.
I'll take that for a career.
Scob careered away to a 102-point win, which is their largest since round 14 of 2023. And it was a game of big numbers. 4 players had 30-plus disposals. Luke Winter had 35. Rob Amendola had 35. Jack Marnie had 33. Cam Hodges had 32. And pleasingly for Scob, they had 7 multiple goal kickers. Sam Critchley had 4 and 4 players who booted 3 apiece. So these are the 2 teams that already know their fate. De La Salle will return to Premier B after 1 season in the top flight, while St Kevin's will finish 3rd. They'll face a cutthroat first semi-final against the winner of Old Haileybury or Old Scotch, that first semi-final to come in a few weeks' time. What a game that's going to be. And now we know, as we have for a couple of weeks, that it's going to be guaranteed. It'll be Old Brighton or Old Zabs in the grand final. Either way, they're going to be an amazing storyline. You're going to have Old Brighton trying to finally win the big one, or you've got Zabs who haven't been there forever but have been so historically successful. So one of those teams guaranteed to make it. And then the question's going to be, will it be St Kevin's? Will it be Old Haileybury? Will it be Old Scotch? All to be decided in the next, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep, and Anthony Lynch comes in pretty happy with how his charges are going. The one thing that stood out from your article and his comments, Jace, was how happy he was with the ball movement and the even contributors, because it's been the story, I think, for me a little bit this year for St Kevin's, is they always have prided themselves previously on even contributions from all their players, but I feel like this year it hasn't quite worked out through injury and unavailability, but it's now starting to click, which is the story for the Scobbers when they've been winning their flags, is that late season, everything starts to work, and that's when they play their best footy. So a bit of a warning sign, I think, for the Scobbers, although Tom Ferguson will be... I expect he might be coming out of this side after playing for St Kevin's. He is listed at Richmond VFL. They did win their way through the wild card. He might get a gong playing in that final after playing against Williamstown a couple of weeks ago.
And I did suggest to Anthony Lynch, tongue-in-cheek really, I said, so you're planning on resting a few and rolling over this week so Collegians get relegated for the first time since 2006?
No comment, I assume, was the response?
He said, every decision we make will be about setting our boys up to win a flag with no consideration given to any other teams, including Collegians.
Well done, Plug.
Very nice.
He's a professional.
Diplomatic answer.
He's a professional.
Yeah.
On to Nick Highland and DILLON, Matty.
Answering it one cliche at a time. Nick Highland was disappointed in the performance that from go to woe they were outplayed by St Kevin's, and paid credit to Anthony Lynch as well, who we've said has really got the Scobbers humming in the back half of the season. But they are looking forward to finishing on an important or on a positive note against Collegians next week. It's their last opportunity to get on the board in the campaign.
Can I just give you a question without notice, Matty? So Scotch, St Kevin's and Old Haileybury, you got to rank them 1 to 3. Who's at 1?
I'm so glad you asked this, because I was...
As in
Right
if
now?
they were to play a round robin today?
Right now.
Yep.
St Kevin's first.
At 1? Okay.
Old Scotch second, and then Old Haileybury third.
Jace, I want to ask you to respond to that question.
I think football will be the winner if those three all go at it.
Excellent.
Well, I understand your logic. St Kevin's have got a body of work behind them. Scotch have had an outstanding weekend. You now need to see them repeat that over the next couple of weeks against other in-form teams. Well, it's going to be an interesting one. And then Old Haileybury, as we've said, maybe they've got one left in them. Maybe backs to the wall. You just never know. So that's what it comes down to this weekend. Old Haileybury will host Old Scotch in a virtual elimination final. You will see that live on vafa.com.au, the simulcast of the SEN call with Paddy and the team. And the winner will progress to face St Kevin's, while the loser is done for 2025. And then at the other end of the table, St Bernard's can secure their safety if they can defeat St Kevin's. But if they don't, Collegians will leapfrog them if they can beat De La Salle. So all to play for. It's all going to play out on Saturday afternoon. The final Saturday of the season. It's going to be an absolute cracker in Premier Men's. Premier B, every bit as exciting. We'll talk about that next on For the Love of the Game.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Hey guys, at GYG we never compromise on the quality of our food. That's why we only serve 100% free-range chicken. We're on a mission to reinvent fast food, because who said fast food had to be bad food? Love ya.
Tickets are now on sale for one of the signature events on the VAFA calendar, the 2025 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, held on Friday, September 5 at Zinc Fed Square. Join us as we celebrate the road to the VAFA and AFL Finals with 5-time Premiership player Dermot Brereton and 2-time Brownlow medalist Greg Diesel Williams. Secure your tickets today at vafa.com.au.
This is For the Love of the Game. Well, Premier B has had us on the edge of our seats all season long. And of course, that will continue into the final Saturday of the season as we look ahead to round 18. But before then, let's wrap up round 17 with our Premier B expert. And I can officially call him that. You're back, Paddy Grindlay. A perfect 5 from 5 over the weekend. Tell us how it all unfolded.
Well, exactly as I saw it, Jace Bennett. So we have a really fun competition here. The top 2 is sewn up. The bottom 2 is sewn up. 3rd and 4th, though, it is crazy. It's the Wild Wild West. The article this week titled 4 doesn't go into 2 because there are 4 teams that are desperately scrapping to try and play in September. We'll start first with Caulfield Grammarians. They've got a 1-game hold on 3rd place. They ran up the score against the Hampton Rovers, 128-point winners, and crucially improving their percentage by nearly 10%. And the story for Paul Satterley's Fields was their VFL players who came back. You're talking Ollie Lowe, Matt Clarkson, Paddy Fairley, Josh Hutchings, Ingo Damersmith. He's typically a defender for Coburg VFL. In his first VAFA game of the season, Sats went, why don't you have a run up forward? And he kicked 7. So a big day for Caulfield Grammarians. It was pretty important that they did improve their percentage. They are under threat from a few teams that I'll get to in just a second's time. And Paul Satterley and his coaching group did target the game as this is an opportunity to try and run up the score a little bit and improve our chances of holding on if they are to lose next week because they play Old Trinity atop the table.
So they're sitting 3rd at the moment, but they're still vulnerable to the 2 teams below them and could, if things go badly for them, still miss out.
Correct. So if they win or they draw, they're in. You don't have to worry about it. But if they lose wins to both Old Campbell and Old Carey, we'll see the Fields miss if the Panthers can overcome a 2.62 percentage gap, which they likely will.
Yeah, they likely will with a loss to Caulfield and a win to the Panthers. So 5th win in a 6-game run. Old Campbell are as hot as anyone right now.
Yeah, Liam Thomas, 8 goals, the last 2 of the game to pretty much end Old Geelong's finals hopes outside of a mathematical miracle because they would have to win next week against Old Carey. They have to hope that Williamstown CYMS defeats Old Camberwell, but they have to outstrip the CYs on percentage. Despite them winning, it won't happen.
Yeah, we're going to have to see a diagram. That's way too complicated.
Correct. So Old Geelong's season is effectively over. It's been a wonderful year, but they're not going back-to-back in finals. And Neil Connell, the coach of Old Camberwell, speaking to his president, he believes that this would be, if they are to make it the Wellers, their first ever final in Premier B footy, which is a massive achievement from Old Camberwell, their 2nd year after coming up from Premier C. After half-time was the story really for the Wellers, and down the stretch, they kicked the last 3 goals of the game. Liam Thomas is one of the great forwards in the competition. He has 13 more goals than anyone else this season. It was a season-high record of 8. And he works really nicely with Harry Lawkins up front for the Wellers. So they're in 4th place. They're level on points with 5th place Old Carey, but 7.47% clear. They will tie up a top 4 spot this weekend, Old Camberwell, with a win over Williamstown CYMS. Unless Old Carey was to run up an almighty score and win over the Ogs and overtake Old Camberwell on percentage. Again, exceptionally unlikely. So,
because Willie will jump over Old Camberwell if they beat them.
Correct. So the simple equation for Neil Connell, win and you're in.
Yeah, it's a bit like that across the board, isn't it, for these clubs sitting in 3rd, 4th and 5th. So Old Carey, another. Like week to week, we've seen teams drop from 3rd to 4th down to 7th or 8th and thinking, they're done. Then suddenly they bob back up again. Old Carey sits 5th. They're still alive.
Correct. It was an interesting thing up to halftime. I was doing the game out at, where was I? Toorak Park between the Old Zaverians and the Uni Blues. And at halftime, it was within a kick between Fitzroy and Old Carey. And I thought, this might get interesting. And I asked Luke Giles, the coach of the Panthers, about that. Fitzroy racked up, he said, 45 uncontested marks in the 2nd quarter. And Luke put it to his players to really improve on that. And that they did. They ran out 16-13, 109 to 8-12, 60 victors in the end. It's another situation. They just have to win next week. Old Carey, they come up against Old Geelong. The benefit there is that the Ogs season is over. But the way things will work is that they will need at least one of Old Camberwell or Caulfield Grammarians to lose in their respective matchups to play finals. So destiny not entirely in the Ogs' hands. Daniel Clark kicking 4 goals. And Luke Kelvey had 29 and a goal. He's been really good on return from his time at Coburg VFL. Led Ramshaw for Fitzroy, who has spent some time for Footscray, 31 disposals and 2 goals for the Royals.
And the last of the finals aspirants is Willie CYMS, which again, a week or so ago, we're saying, they're done for the year. And suddenly they've bobbed back up again. They needed to win and win well over Old Melburnians, and they did.
Yeah, that they did. 143 to 77, and the candle still flickers for Con Terzoglu's men. They need to win and then hope that Old Carey lose to Old Geelong if they are to play finals. Their percentage is very, very good. Don't quite rule out the CYs against Old Campbell, even on the road. They've brought back Geordie Buzzertool.
Yeah, this is the key at this time of the year, isn't it?
He's been outstanding from Essendon VFL. I had a coach around the competition tell me that Geordie's the best player in B grade, 34 disposals and 13 clearances on return. Harry Miller's come back from Werribee VFL, a lazy 23-7 at the feet of Zach Provost and Aidan McCarroll, who I've spoken about ad nauseum over these last couple of weeks. But Williamstown still alive. They do need to beat Old Campbell and hope Old Carey lose to Old Geelong if they are to play finals.
And the funny thing about this, Matty, as we take a look at the ladder, is that even recent form you can almost throw out the window because of the arrival of all these VFL players. And we saw it, we talked about it earlier with the Premier Men's competition, and Old Scotch suddenly getting all of these players back. They're not the Old Scotch they were 3 weeks ago when they were struggling to win a game. They're a completely different team. We see that in Premier B as well. So form from the last 6 to 8 weeks goes out the window, and you can really only look at the last 1 to 2.
Yeah, correct. And it's interesting that we get to this point of B-grade discussion and we don't talk about 1v2, which also happened in round 17 at the weekend. Old Trinity and Old Ivanhoe both have known their top two destinies for a little while now. They will play in the second semi-final in a couple of weeks' time, but always healthy to get a win against the enemy. The T's 71-59 over Old Ivanhoe in a game that Billy Murphy, the star from the Hoers, didn't play in. So hopefully we can see him back in a fortnight's time.
What did you take away from that then?
Old Trinity have won both its games against Old Ivanhoe, albeit the margin has come in a little bit. 37 points back in round 9, back to 2 goals straight in this game of footy. I think the key thing for me are the big guys up forward and down back for Old Trinity. Charlie Beasley's back into this side. Boston Dowling's back into this side, and he will be available now that Collingwood VFL's season is over. Dom Payman also played in this game of footy. So they've gotten markedly bigger, the Trinity key defenders and key forwards. So they're top of the ladder. They're the team to beat.
And as we turn our attention to the ladder now, we've got that top two, Old Trinity, Old Ivanhoe. They're blocked away. It's just a case of who's wearing white shorts first week. One game separates them and just 0.77% as well on the ladder as well. So it is very tight at the top there. And then we've got our race for the next two. Caulfield Grammarians currently hold third spot at the moment with an 11-6 record. Old Camberwell and Old Carey hold fourth and fifth spot, currently about 7.5% separating them, each on 10 wins. Williamstown CYMS 1 game back in 6th spot. As we mentioned, Old Geelong also here with 9 wins as well, but their route to the finals is possible in theory only. And then working our way back, Old Melburnians a further 2 games back in 8th. Fitzroy and Hampton Rovers, we've known for quite some time, are both going to be relegated to Division or to Premier C next season. Fitzroy with 2 wins for the season. Hampton Rovers still looking for their first win of 2025.
It's time now to talk Premier C football. And the real interest in Premier C at the moment, with the top 4 locked in, not necessarily the order confirmed, but the top 4 teams, and certainly first and second are locked in. And then we know Ajax and St Bede's will be third and fourth. It's just a question of which order, which doesn't really matter. Parkdale, Beaumaris, Ajax, St Bede's, Mentone, Tigers are going to be our top 4. So the real interest, gentlemen, is at the bottom end of the ladder, and that relegation battle to stay up in Premier football and avoid dropping back down to Division 1 next season. And it is a race in 3. Well, a race in 2, really, because Paran will definitely go down. They haven't won a game this year. It's between Mazenod and Parkside. Mazenod at the moment sit on 4 wins at 77.9. They're ahead of Parkside, also on 4 wins, 57.9. So the percentage gap, you would think, is so monumental that won't become a factor. For Parkside to get out of relegation, they're going to have to win their final game of the season. And they will play St Bede's Mentone, the 4th-ranked team at the moment, while Mazenod will play the Parkdale Vultures, the top-of-the-table team. But as we mentioned, it's really incumbent now on Parkside. They have to come up with something special and beat St Bede's Mentone. As we check the results from round 17, Mazenod, 87-point winners over Paran. As we mentioned, they had the chance to play against the Double Blues, who haven't won a game this year. 87 points, the result for Mazenod, which kicked them clear up to 8th spot. 19-6, 120, defeating Paran, 4-9-33. Chippo Morris have built up a great head of steam. They are heading towards the finals in ripping form. 15-16, 106, defeated Ajax, a fellow finalist, 4-11-35, a 71-point win for the Sharks. Glenara Old McKinnon have really turned their season around after a very difficult start to the year under first-year coach Guy Martin, and they've finished pretty strong. 12-4-76, again, wonderful kicking. Defeated Parkside 5-8-38, which dropped Parkside down into that 9th spot. Marcelin, 15-14, 104, defeated Pegs 13-10-88. Talk about finishing the season strongly. Marcelin, a couple of wins that have got them clear of the drop zone and beaten teams above them. Fantastic performance from them. So they're finishing really well under Bernie Deneen, and congratulations to Bernie on the birth of baby Max. Not a lot of sleep for Byrne at the moment, but at least his footy team's going well. Parkdale Vultures, 13-13-91, defeated St Bede's Mentone 7-11-53. Two finalists going at it there in the end. Parkdale by 38 points. So returning to the ladder, as we said, it's all going to come down to that final round. Parkside with all the work to do.
Well, the interesting wrinkle here, Jason Matthew, is that it is round 18 and that the teams that they're playing, the two teams trying to escape relegation, so Mazenod with Parkdale and Parkside with St Bede's Mentone, is that Parkdale and St Bede's Mentone will play finals and they can't really move. They can't move up into the top two or down into the bottom half.
They can finish third or fourth or first or second, but that doesn't matter.
So maybe there's a question for a few coaches about maybe do we just rest a couple of blokes, keep our powder dry for the weekend?
It's been a constant theme today. We've been talking about it throughout the show. It's about that man management. And whilst it's that fickle balance, isn't it, between you risk tinkering with form, but at the same time, you want your best players fit and healthy, and maybe a chance to freshen up at this time of the year is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a question that a lot of teams and their coaches will be asking them during the week. My takeaway from this one is this weekend was that we got a neat little finals preview. The top four all playing each other over the weekend, so got a bit of an idea on what we can expect heading into finals. It was a good warm up back for all of those sides and learning what their strengths and weaknesses are heading into the business end of the season.
Would you rest some players if you had the option to? You know that it can't affect your ladder position. You're playing against a team that you, let's be honest, probably would come up against positively anyway. Do you take the risk of just taking the foot off the gas for a week, Jace?
I think it's too broad brush to say yes or no to that. I think it depends very much on circumstances, right? Like in terms of which players are we talking about needing to be rested here? Are they prime movers? Are they fringe players? What is your situation with the team in terms of how's it rolling? You know, are you in good form? You risk that form? Have you been a bit up and down? So I think it's sort of horses for courses, really. That would be my take on it. And I think that's the way most coaches would look at it. As a general rule, no, you want to hit finals in form with your best team playing and the cohesion of not upsetting blokes by dropping them or, you know, having to switch guys around. But at the same time, sometimes it's justified.
Yeah, I agree that, it comes down, it's situational, I think, really, whether you do or don't. But I think as a general rule, I would just like to stick with what's got you to this point, and that's not making any unnecessary changes.
Coming up next, a massive bumper divisional segment with Brayden May and a couple of guests coming right up on For the Love of the Game.
Tickets are now on sale for one of the signature events on the VAFA calendar, the 2025 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon, held on Friday, September 5 at Zinc Fed Square. Join us as we celebrate the road to the VAFA and AFL Finals with five-time Premiership player Dermot Brereton and two-time Brownlow medalist Greg Diesel Williams. Secure your tickets today at vafa.com.au.
Well, we often talk about the heart and soul people of the VAFA and it being for the love of the game, and our next guest is exactly one of those. 18 years of senior football has come to an end for JARROD Eggleston, one of the all-time greats at Therry Penola. What a performance. 279 games, 256 of those in the senior team, 229 goals, made the debut all the way back in round 10 of 2007. He's a premiership captain. He was best on the ground in that grand final. He's been a big V player, three-time club best and fairest, league best and fairest as well, and he's hung up the boots. JARROD, congratulations. Welcome to For the Love of the Game.
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for your time. We really appreciate it, particularly in between your busy work as a firefighter at Sunshine. Are you on duty at the moment?
Yes, I am, mate. I am. So, yeah, if the alarms go, you might get an abrupt end to this chat.
That would be the most exciting finish to a segment we've ever had. So hopefully a cat gets stuck up a tree somewhere in Sunshine. You can go save it. Hey, let's go all the way back to 2007, obviously a long time ago, and your debut at Therry Penola. How did you first land at the club? What's your origin story? What's your connection to Therry?
So my dad has probably played 340 odd games. My uncles played at the club. My cousin was actually playing at the time, and he was sort of the one that invited me down and used to pick me up and drive me to training and things like that because obviously I couldn't drive back then. So, yeah, I guess I sort of grew up at the club really, to be honest, like following the old man. He sort of played majority twos and threes and, was running the water, running the boundary, and then before I knew it, I was pulling on a jumper myself.
Yeah, it's amazing. So is it something you always grew up dreaming of doing, running out and playing for the Lions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sort of playing AFL, which I was never going to do. I just only ever really wanted to play at Therry in my dad's number 10. So, yeah, I was more than happy to make my debut back then.
So good. Hey, listen, have you worked out how many games between you all you've contributed to this footy club, the entire family? Because it's an unbelievable legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually should sit down and work it out. Like between my two brothers, my old man and my uncles, it'd be a few.
You're getting up towards 1,000 almost between you all.
Yeah, definitely. And then I suppose if you threw in a couple of cousins and that don't share the same last name, but cousins by marriage, it'd be well over 1,000.
Mate, can you pick out probably your best memory from your career? I know it's a brutal question to get a couple of ones in, and you're premiership captain, big V rep, club best and fairest, league best and fairest. What's been the highlight for you over your 279 game career? Definitely,
like playing wise, the highlight's been the 2013 flag. That was something that was really special. Had my brother in the side, one of my best mates I went to school with, as well as a cousin who was a few years older than me. So that was just a really special day. But probably more recently, bit of a soft sort of answer here, but playing in front of my kids has been awesome. You know, I got two young boys. They won't remember it at all because they're only 4 and 2, but seeing them after a game, it's pretty special.
Another generation coming through, the Therry Penola faithfully like, yep, great. We don't need father-son in the VAFA, but there'll be another generation coming through. Let's hope. What's the essence of the place? Jarrod, obviously you've been there your entire life and you've been a player for most of your life. When people say, oh, where do you play? Oh, I play down at Therry Penola. Oh, yeah, what's that about? What's that place like?
I suppose it's the best way I'd say to describe it would sort of be a club that sort of punches above its weight in a lot of ways. We're sort of in the heartland of the EDFL. We sort of have to really fight and scratch for sort of everything that we get, in recruiting players and any sort of support from local council and things like that. Like we've been lobbying for pretty much as long as I've been at the club for new lights and they got done last year. And, for the last 7 or 8 years, there's probably maybe some opponents listening to this that hate coming to our ground because one side of it floods most winters, So we've been really lobbying and trying to get some support for that. But, we're not the biggest club in the area, so we sort of have to really, try and put ourselves on the map in regards to that. But it's just it's a good family club. Like I said, I grew up there. I probably played a couple of 100 senior games with guys that I was kicking the footy with behind the goals when we were 4 or 5 years old. So it's really, I suppose, like a generational thing. You sort of gets entrenched in you when you're a young fella, and I guess that's the essence of the place, really, in a short summary.
Beautifully said.
Jarrod, congratulations on a wonderful career. Just hearing you talk about it, it's quite clear that there's a lot about the club and about playing that you love. Invariably, there'll be a lot that you'll miss once your playing days are done. What's the one thing that you think you're going to miss most of all?
I'd say just the being with like the young fellas. I'm a fair bit older than them now, but for years it was, you got to see your mates, 3 and 4 times a week at training and games and things like that. That was like the highlight. And now being a little bit older, probably giving a little bit of guidance to the young fellas, hanging out with them, they sort of try to keep me relevant into what's going on in the world and things like that. So just being around the club, being around the boys, working towards a common goal and all those sorts of things is what I'm going to miss, definitely. One
of the things I've learned in my time in the VAFA, Jarrod, is the word retirement doesn't have a lot of staying power, depending.
No such thing.
So I'm going to ask you the question. If it gets to maybe this time next year or maybe a few weeks earlier, so early August, and you're thinking about pulling on the boots and maybe running around in the twos, would you answer the phone?
I'm definitely going to have a pinch hit in the twos.
Yes. Very good.
A couple of my mates, sort of lifelong friends of mine, have pretty much played reserve footy, and I haven't really played a lot with them. So that was the whole premise of, there's a couple of my mates who are with work commitments and things like that can actually play next year. So it's sort of getting the Dad's Army back together next year, and there'll be a few of us playing a few games together, which will be good fun in front of our kids. So
that's perfect. And we're seeing a bit of that at this time of the year. Nathan Jones has started doing that down at Old Peninsula. He's played a couple of games, and they're obviously getting ready for a finals campaign. But he never got a chance to play with his mates because he was often in the AFL system, so he hasn't played with his buddies for 20 years. And we spoke to him a week or two ago, and again, he said the same thing as you, Jarrod, that it was just you can achieve so much, you can do all sorts of different things in footy, but there's nothing quite as special as playing with your old mates, and the memories that you'll create doing that will last for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that, I've sort of been chipping away playing this year and last year predominantly, and I've been the oldest by 3 or 4 years, the only one with kids. I'm in a completely different boat to them. So I suppose that was the big thing that I wanted to make a stand and a point of saying, I still do want to play a couple of reserves games. I really want to finish with a couple of my mates who are, similar age and, playing for similar reasons and things like that.
You mentioned how the generations change, and when you started out, you were one of the youngsters. You were captain of the club, named captain at about 20 years of age, weren't you? So you're a very young captain. What was that experience like to be a young captain surrounded by blokes who were older? And then obviously as time goes by, you become one of the veterans of the team. But from your perspective, looking back now, captain at 20, it's a big responsibility. How did you handle it?
Yeah, it was interesting. As I said, I grew up at the club and there were, blokes who'd won multiple best and fairest and I'd grown up running them water and things like that. And then they were turning around, calling me skipper and things like that.
Wow.
It was a bit bizarre at first. And I'll happily go on the record as saying I was a very, very poor captain at the start. At 20, I didn't really know how to relate to many different people and things like that. And I was lucky in that the club sort of sourced a few mentors for me. And one of them who I'll mention here was the old premiership captain of Therry in 2000, Mark Finnegan. He was someone I really lent on. I probably annoyed the shit out of him, to be honest, with all the questions and stuff. But towards the end, I'd like to think that I got good at building relationships and trying to figure out what made people tick, whether they wanted, to be sort of cuddled a little bit or challenged a bit. But I was pretty poor at it at the start, and it was definitely a big learning curve, that's for sure.
Jarrod, you mentioned earlier how much you enjoy being with the younger players of the side. You've been in the game for a long time. What would your message be to a young footballer just starting their journey now?
Just take it all in as much as you can. It's going to be over before you know it. I know that's probably a bit of a grim sort of way of looking at things, but, I still remember the Thursday night before my first game and it just doesn't feel that long ago. Just take it all in as much as you can. Get as fit as you can, handle the footy as much as you can, and don't ever take for granted coming to training because, this year I was a bit not really able to train as I wanted to because I had to mind my kids while my wife worked and, I could get to training at times and was literally too sore, to do anything. I missed being 25 and you could just start roosting the footy without a warm-up and things like that. It just goes so quick.
And that's why you can't now.
Yeah, exactly. But, just enjoy it. It's the best time of your life. It just goes quick.
No one achieves what you've achieved by yourself, Jarrod. Who would you like to thank? There must be plenty of people that have been part of your journey.
Oh, absolutely. My folks have been awesome. I don't think they ever really missed a game, to be honest, particularly Mum. She rode the highs and lows, the lows being the injuries pretty hard. The club have been awesome to me, looked out for me through, over 18 years, you have your ups and downs and you have your tough times. And any time I was going through a rough patch, there was so many people at the club that were looking out for me. I got 2 brothers who I'd have to say thanks to as well. They sort of pushed me along. A lot of my mates who I played with for ages, and I suppose goes without saying that, my beautiful wife, Renee, contrary to what a lot of people think, she wasn't forcing me to hang up the boots or anything like that. She was more than happy for me to keep playing. But, yeah, she's been a real support and everything like that. And yeah, the biggest thank you definitely has to go to her. But I've probably left out a few people anyway. But yeah.
No, beautifully said. Hey, Jarrod, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Congratulations. As we said, you're the sort of heart and soul character that this wonderful football competition is based around. Congratulations. Thank you so much for your contribution over so many years. And we hope that you're not lost to the VAFA and Therry Penola in the future.
Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it. And good luck to all the sides lucky enough to play finals.
Wonderful story there with Jarrod, one of the great contributors to VAFA footy and Therry Penola over 2 decades. In fact, a whole lifetime, really. Just one of those great family origin stories have just been around forever. He said probably 1,000 games between all his relatives.
That's remarkable, isn't it, Jason? I think the most remarkable thing that I got out of that interview was that the fire alarm didn't go off at any point. So he managed to get through 15 minutes without him having to go rescue a cat, as you mentioned.
Well, one of the great stories of the weekend, one of the real big stories of the weekend was Division 1 and the dramatic finish to the home and away season, which saw Oakleigh, the Krushers, storm into the Division 1 finals on the back of a big win over Monash Blues. And joining us now to talk about it is their coach, Chris Warner. G'day, Chris.
How you going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We'll start with your own journey. I believe your coaching journey started about 20-odd years ago, didn't it? At Melbourne High School Old Boys, MHSOB, and then Chelsea and Hampton Hammers, and then the Chelsea Juniors, and a bit of time at Scotch College, and now you're getting towards the end of your first year at Oakleigh. Is that a fair representation of the road to now?
Yeah, it is. A bit of junior footy to a start when I was probably 20-year-old, sort of helped a mate coach the under-16 Melbourne High School Old Boys. Started there, that was good. And then, just in and out of my sort of senior career, managed to do some assistant roles and coached Hampton Hammers. It was my first senior gig. That was about 12, 13 years ago now. And then once my career sort of decided to end, I dipped my toes into the junior ranks with my girls playing footy and did that for about 6 years, and then realised I was ready to step back into senior footy, and Oakleigh gave me the opportunity to do that. So, that's it.
Finals in your first season, it's a great achievement. Talk us through the last 12 months, where you've started to where you are now.
So when I first got given the job, coming down from Prem C, the boys didn't have a real fun year in Prem C. I think they only won the one game, maybe a draw as well. So our main focus was just getting the guys enjoying their footy again, right through from sort of 19s, reserves, thirds, all the way through. Focus was, it'd be a great result if we made finals, but more about just educating guys again on a new path, a new playing system. And we're a very, very young list, and we decided with a bit of development throughout the year, we never know what could happen. Finals was a great result. I've always said I want to get the guys in there to experience a bit of that. The good thing is we're here now, so hopefully we can shake things up.
The one thing I love about the Emmos, Jason, Matty, is that all the games tend to happen at once on a Saturday afternoon, which means that you get to these situations in the last games of the season where you're desperately refreshing Play HQ to see how your fortunes have favoured themselves. And for you guys, it was a situation that Preston needed to lose to UHSVU. You obviously needed to beat Monash. That contest was put paid to, you'd say, by half-time. Were there some nervous moments down the stretch as UHSVU just held on over Preston?
It was one of the most remarkable things I've ever probably experienced. I didn't really want to know anything about the game while we were playing. I had guys asking me if I wanted to know, and I basically said, no, we got to win this. And then once we had it won, I still felt like we had a job to do. We haven't really finished a game off. We haven't played too many four-quarter efforts this year, and I was excited about, having a really good, solid win. And then someone just broke it to me at three-quarter time. Not that I wanted to, but broke it to me. They were up by 12 points, and I might have been a bit nasty with how I responded because I was like, I didn't want to know. But at the end of the game, it was weird because I just sort of brought the boys in and said, look, we've done what we've had to do. Whatever happens, happens. Let's just enjoy ourselves. And
so was the other game still going? Was the other game still going?
It was still going.
Right.
So everyone on the ground was refreshing their phones. I don't reckon anyone was watching our game in the last quarter. I reckon everyone was watching their screens. And it got to the point where we were inside our rooms and the whole club was in there, and you could hear a pin drop. because it looked like on the app that it went to about 37 or 38 minutes, and we're like, surely it's over. But we just didn't know, and then we got a phone call come through, and our president, Pat Heverin, just said, we're in, and everything just went nuts. It was unbelievable. So
phone call. Did you have
really
a spy,
good finish to the year.
Did you have a spy at the ground, spying on the result for you? What happened to phone call?
I actually don't know. It was the weirdest thing. Like, everything was quiet, and we got a phone call, and we're like, the president's got a phone call from somewhere. So the president got a spy down there that we didn't know about, or someone ran there. I actually have no idea how that came about. But it was the drama to it all. The way it unfolded was unbelievable. So not great for Preston, and I can feel for those guys. But in the scheme of it managed to fall our way, and we wouldn't throw it back.
So which roar was louder then? Was it the one after the final siren at your game, or the one that came immediately after the call from the president?
The one from the president, in the rooms. It's funny. We've had 2 weeks in a row like that. The win over Peninsula at home. We sung that song probably with the most gusto we had all year, because we knew that was one we had to win to keep our finals season alive. Finals chances alive, sorry. And then, we came into this game this week knowing that we have to get Monash back because they beat us by a kick on the siren. Sort of said to the boys, if we don't make finals this year, it's because we let ourselves down. We lost 2 games this year, both by a kick on the siren, which I reckon would be unheard of to happen twice in the 1 year. But at least I sort of said we know we're thereabouts and we're good enough to play finals footy. But it's a reward for effort. We haven't changed too much throughout the year. We've sort of stuck with the same system, and it's starting to pay dividends now, and hopefully we can go a couple more.
It's been an incredible roller coaster of a year, which is often the case, right, with a first-year coach and a young list. I think you won 4 of your first 5, then you lost 3 of your next 4, then you won 3 of the next 4, you lost a couple, and then, as you mentioned, you've won the last 3 to sneak in. But it just reinforces that if you hang in there and you sort of stay the course, anything's possible.
That's right. I did a bit of I analysed my year into sort of 4 blocks, of the first 4 rounds, next 4 rounds, and so on. And when you do that at the start of the year, you have a look at history, and it sort of says, 11 to 12 wins gets you into finals historically. And I thought, well, you go through the sides after the first round, there's no point looking, because the first year coach at VAFA had no idea what anyone was going to be like. You hear the stories that Ormond were going to be good, and Peninsula and UHS from last year. But then after sort of the halfway mark, you can sort of start to picture the winnable games and the losable games. And if you sort of look at going, if we can win these games that we need must wins, and we've already won, and if we give up the games we've already lost, then we thought we'd be a fair chance of making finals. But footy's a funny thing. Like we lost the games we were meant to win, and we won the games we probably weren't meant to, like the one at Peninsula. And it just instills a bit of belief in the boys that they're capable of playing with the best.
Chris, just one point that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to go back to. For all the excitement that was happening in the press game, you mentioned that you still wanted the boys to focus on the job that they needed to do at their end. How pleasing was it for you that, despite the potential distractions elsewhere, that your Chargers were able to remain focused and see out the match?
It was excellent. It was funny. Even the guys who came off to the bench, I brought a few boys off, obviously halfway through that last quarter, just put them on a bit of ice, and they weren't even worried about the score themselves. They were actually just, every time they saw someone want to come for a spell, they all wanted to get back on the field and keep playing. So there wasn't even the talk from any of us, from the players, what was going on at the Preston game. So it's pleasing that we're all in it together. Basically, we all were running in the same direction, which was good.
Now you get the opportunity. First semi-final this week, Saturday, 2:00 at Coburg City Oval against Kew. The Bears have beaten you twice this year. What are you expecting?
I'm expecting something pretty similar. I reckon if all the coaches I've spoken to after our games this year, I've said to all of them that Q's touched us up twice. There's no hiding away from that. They're clearly the best side that we've played. Very, very well coached. Very, very good outfit. We gave it our best each time we played them, and we weren't good enough both times. So credit to them, but we'll just keep sticking with what we know and what we've been doing this year, and hopefully it can fall our way. We've got a few plans in place. We've changed a few things up positionally. nothing too drastic, just trying a few different plays in a few different positions, which has worked and hasn't worked. But we've got pretty good depth with our youngsters coming through, so we've still got a couple of guys that potentially come into the side. So hopefully we can come into it with a little bit stronger than we were last time, and we can shake things up. I'm pretty confident. We can make a change. Like I said, we got beaten by Peninsula by 40 odd points, and we turned that around to a 45-point win the second time we played them. So I'm pretty confident we're capable of winning, but we got nothing to lose. Not too many people were probably expecting Oakleigh to be playing finals this year. Probably a bit of an unknown all year. All the talks about Luke Ashen, when in fact we've got 21 other players out there who are capable of doing just as good as he does on the day. So we'll back everyone in, and hopefully we can get the chocolates.
Chris, thanks so much for your time, mate. All the best for Saturday. Enjoy riding the roller coaster. You've come a long way.
Thank you very much for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Congratulations to Oakleigh, as we're joined by our divisional guru, BRAYDEN May from the Herald Sun, joins us. BRAYDEN, what a story. Hey, Oakleigh managing to pinch fourth by 10%.
Isn't it a wonderful thing? What a finish to the season. Like, talk about arriving in form, 123-point winners, I'm sure you guys have touched on. You've got to feel for the Preston Bullants, so to narrowly go down by 3 points, it just shows what a game of margins it is. I think we said a couple of weeks ago it looked like the race for the top four was well and truly done, but well done to Oakleigh for continuing to believe. It's a great story when you think about they were relegated from Premier C, lost a lot of senior players, but the young kids have done an awesome job to put them in this position.
Yeah, just heartbreaking for Preston Bullants. 3 points in the end. They went down to VSU, as we do check the scores from the final rounds of Division 1. And that game, Preston and UHSVU. And Preston had their chances late. They had, I think, kicked 4 behinds, didn't they, Paddy, late in the game? And any one of those go through and they make the finals. But in the end, it was UHSVU 12-14-86 defeating Preston 12-11-83. We've mentioned Oakleigh and their massive win over Monash, 21-23, 149, defeating the Blues 4-2-26 at Scammell Reserve. Old Peninsula hit the finals in great form. They won by 79 points, 19-15, 129, defeating Q 7-8-50. And as we mentioned earlier, Therry Penola, 13-point winners over Elstonwick, 11-16, 82 to the Wicks, 10-9, 69. Then in the other game, the top of the table, Ormond complete their perfect home and away season, 12-16, 88, defeating Brunswick, 9-12, 66. So the final ladder there in D1 at the end of the home and away season.
It is Ormond who completed the perfect campaign, 18 games, 18 wins for them. In second, Old Peninsula with a record of 14-4. 2 games back, Q with a record of 12-6. And then that tight finish for the top 4, which we mentioned. Oakleigh with an 11-7 record, beating Preston Bullants to that final spot on percentage, at 10% in the end. In sixth spot, UHSVU with an even record of 9-9, and working our way down the ladder, Brunswick with a record of 6-12 in seventh spot. Monash Blues 5-13 in eighth spot, and then the 2 teams in the relegation zone who'll be going down to Div 2. Therry Penola with 13-5, and then Elstonwick with a record of 1-17.
Let's turn our attention to Div 2. Brayden, Old Yarra Cobras have been the pace setters for much of the year, and geez, they've hit the finals in some form.
Yeah, a really good win over a Melbourne High School old boys side that was still alive coming into the weekend, and nothing better than, I guess, that little bit of recognition to win the minor premiership, get the double chance. St. Mary's Salesian, they wouldn't have been too happy to lose that last game to West Brunswick, but it sets up a mouthwatering clash this weekend. I think they've been the 2 clear standouts throughout the season. So it's going to be interesting. St. Mary's Salesian, quite a young side. How are they going to stand up against the Old Yarra Cobras side, who was only in this position a couple of years ago when they were promoted to D1? So the experience against the inexperience shapes up as a beauty.
And Brandon, we've been speaking a lot this season about South Melbourne Districts. They started the year 0-4, but they've stormed all the way back to claim a spot inside the top 4. What a remarkable story.
Yeah, it's a remarkable effort, and obviously a lot of credit to Nick Abbott, the coach, who is stepping down whenever their season does come to an end. Like, not many sides can turn around an 0-4 start. Like, the bottom can easily fall out, but they've come together. They had a huge list turnover, like an 11-point win over St John's, who have been capable of challenging the best sides this season. It's fantastic for the Swans, and I guess they're in that good of form. Anything's possible. You would be believing any side that comes up against them will be slightly nervous because their best footy actually hasn't been tested against the top three. When they played these three sides in West Brunswick, St Mary's Salesian and Old Yarra Cobblers earlier in the year, they all had the Melbourne Airport flu.
Tullamarine flu impacts us all. So they are fourth on the ladder with a come-from-behind 11-point victory over St John's. Meanwhile, Aquinas, they farewelled a club legend with a win.
Yeah, outgoing coach Craig Glennie, they got the win over Hawthorn. He's been in the club for a long time. Like when they made the announcement, just reading through his achievements as a player, as an under-19s coach and as a senior coach, these people are hard to find. Loyalty is very hard to find in modern sport. At the top level all the way down, there's a lot of movement, but it speaks a lot to Glennie as well. Sam Glennie finished with 3 goals. It's a great effort for Aquinas. They'll probably hit the reset button in D3 next year, so wish them all the best. They've got a couple of young kids that we mentioned that have been nominated for the Rising Star. We're nominating my article as some of the Rising Stars of the competition, so if they can build around them, the future is bright at Aquinas.
So South Melbourne District 66 defeating St John's 55, as we mentioned. Aquinas defeating Hawthorn. And then Canterbury, 157 over Whitefriars 78. 79-point winners, the Cobras. The Old Yarra Cobras also enjoying a victory over MHSOB, 112-91. 21-point victors there. And then West Brunswick Amateurs, 88-52, defeating St Mary's Salesian by an even 6 goals.
As we turn our attention to the ladder now, gents, Old Yarra Cobras, the minor premiers, half a game clear of St Mary's Salesian. So Old Yarra Cobras with a 15-2-1 record, St Mary's Salesian 15-3. And then the other two teams making up the top four, West Brunswick with a record of 13-5, and then South Melbourne with 11-7. As we move to the rest of the table, MHSOB with an even record of 9-9. Whitefriars, the other team with that draw, half a game behind them, 8-9-1. Then Canterbury with a record of 8-10, a percentage in excess of 100 for them though, and working our way down. St John's 5-12 record, Aquinas 3-15, and then Hawthorn down the bottom with a record of 2-16 this year.
On to how things finished up in Division 3 in a moment, Brayden, but I see that you've written a little bit about Box Hill North despite them missing the top 4. Tell me about them.
Yeah, they actually won the last 6 games at the end of the season, which it probably flies under the radar when they're out of the finals calculations. But Blake Williams finished with 85 majors for the season, which is a remarkable effort. Bit of a shame he's not playing finals because we could have been on ton watch, but they had a 106-point win over Chadstone on the weekend. But yeah, well, it's just one of those things. If you keep this group together, they've probably worked out what works for them and what doesn't in this second half of the season. If they bring that more consistently next year, they're probably a side we're talking about now heading into a top 4 final series.
Yeah, Box Hill North, a big win over Chadstone, as you mentioned. Albert Park by 191 points over Ely Park. North Brunswick by 2 points over Richmond Central. That's a huge story, Brayden, and a massive game of footy.
Yeah, speaking to Dom Fontana, it's one of those games where both sides didn't give too much away. A couple of guys rested on both sides of the fence, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out this week. They'll play each other again. The Bulls will probably take the slight mental edge, but finals footy is very different. And I think these two are probably just a little step behind the top 2 in Powerhouse and Model Park. But again, anything's possible. The Bulls are just really desperate to get to that grand final and just right the wrongs of previous years.
Spot on. As we go through the rest of the results, Powerhouse, as you mentioned, exactly that, and a big win over Latrobe. 132-point winners, Powerhouse. Wattle Park by 70 points over Swinburne Uni. Matty Donald, as we turn over to the ladder for Division 3.
Yeah, so we've got our top 2, Powerhouse and Wattle Park, with a record of each 15-3. Powerhouse winning it by percentage just 67% separating the two sides. Working our way down, North Brunswick and Richmond Central also have an even record, 13 wins and 5 defeats, separated only by, 0.8%. So that was a much closer run in the end of it. Then working our way outside the top 4, Box Hill in 5th spot with a record of 11-7. Albert Park in 6th, the record of 10-8. Latrobe in 7th, 6-12 record for them. Swinburne with 4 wins for the season in 8th spot. Chadstone 1 win behind them in 9th, and then Ely Park with a record of 0-18 for the season.
Brayden, looking ahead to the final round of Premier Men's this weekend, and it is all come down to this for St Bernard's. Our community TV doubleheader kicking off at 11:35 on Saturday morning. St Bernard's versus St Kevin's. The Snow Dogs got a few players back from the VFL, including Jackson Haitley, who we talked about earlier, being absolutely outstanding. They looked a different side on the weekend. Win, and they're in. They survive in Premier Men's, but lose, and they'll be waiting on the result between Collegians and D La Salle. What a game that's going to be. St Bernard's and St Kevin's.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time to be a St Bernard supporter. Timing's everything in footy. Imagine getting all those types of guys back, as you touched on, Haitley, and it just makes a difference. These sort of guys have been at the highest level. They understand the pressure, but this becomes a mental game. You've just got to go out and focus on your own game and not worry about what's going on at the other ground.
Brayden May, always good to have your company. We'll catch you next week.
Beautiful, guys. Speak then.
Hey guys, at GYG we never compromise on the quality of our food. That's why we only serve 100% free-range chicken. We're on a mission to reinvent fast food, because who said fast food had to be bad food? Love ya.
Well, Paddy, the time's now come. I've been waiting the entire show just to see what you've come up with for the big moment. All year we've been counting down ton watch. It started with Joseph the Grinch Pignataro saying it is impossible for anyone to kick 100 in the VAFA. It just does not happen. And in fact, if it does, I will jump the fence. I will run out there. I will be the first person to shake the hand of the man who does it. As weeks have gone by, one man has proven Pignataro wrong. And for that, we are forever grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jake, the Snake Dillon. Congratulations, Jake.
Thanks.
Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, guys. Much appreciated.
100 goals for Richmond Centrals in 2025. It's a wonderful performance, mate. Let's go back a bit further, though. Talk us through your footy journey. How did you get to this point?
So I started playing down at Mornington for most of my junior years, played up until probably a couple of years of seniors. Then, I didn't actually play footy for a good 10 years. Played footy in London a couple of years ago, fell back in love with it there, and then been at the Snakes for the last 3 years. And, here we are.
Talk us through your year. Week after week we were talking about, Jake's kicked another bag of goals. Why isn't he playing in the ones? We knew there were some blokes playing in the ones that were kicking lots of bags of goals. But just tell us about, where you're at in life generally. I mean, you're, 33 now? Is that right? 33?
Yeah, 33 now, yeah. So I played the first few games in the ones. Just wasn't really feeling it. The body's just getting older. A few of the younger boys that are coming up, which is good to see at the club. And, I spoke with the guys, the coaches, and then, we just made the choice that I'll just stay down in the twos. If I ever needed to go up, I would be more than happy to. But, just started really enjoying my footy, just playing down with a few of the boys in the twos. So, yeah.
So you kicked 7 from 5 in the ones, mate. When you kicked, what is it, as I count this up, 38 goals in 4 weeks, did you think, in the reserves, did you think I might be on here? This might be a big year for me.
Yeah, I think it might have been after the Swinburne game. It was actually my 50th against Ely Park, and we're like, all right, we this could be a chance here. So we decided to go. Yeah, we decided to go for it, and then, here we are. We're here.
Can you talk us through the strategy, what goes into kicking 19 goals, as you mentioned, against Ely Park? Was it just you inside 50 with your opponent and no one else? So they all clear out for you, Pagan's paddock style?
Yeah, pretty much. I did, I'd say, it was just all by myself in the forward line. Then, they were just looking at me at every option. I never kicked goals on the run. There was this one. This all worked out that day. It was 19 goals won, and I've kicked it around the corner trying to set it up, and it's just gone straight through the middle. And that was just how it went for the day.
And the thing is, I look at your overall stats of your career, Jake, and you weren't a massive goal kicker really until this year. I mean, you played 33 games at Ballura as a junior and kicked 4 goals in those 33 games. Played 3 at South Mornington and kicked a goal, and then coming into this year. You've just exploded. Were you always a forward, or is this the first year as a forward, or what sort of clicked for you?
Yeah, first year as a forward. I've always been begging for it, but always been predominantly playing in the ruck, and would float down when I got the chance. But Sol gave me the key to go down there this year, and it's paid off.
Jake, congratulations on the achievement. 100 goals is a phenomenal effort. Now, we were sitting here, we've been doing our segment of Ton Watch all year, and obviously your name has cropped up a fair bit throughout the course of the year. Last week we were sitting here and we were talking about the fact that you'd only kicked 4 goals. There was speculation that you might have been taken out of the forward line, played down back, played on the wing even at times. Can you confirm any of that you were actually taken out of the forward line last week?
Yes, I went to the back line at halftime and I copped a few boos from the crowd. But I
we
would have
didn't
copped
turn
it
up to
worse
see you play centre half back, Dillon.
No, my wife was playing with the women's side, and she said, "I swear to God, if you do it without me there," so I had to hold out for that.
And then the following week, sitting on 99 goals. In hindsight, did you overdo it with the cotton wool? Like, how did you actually approach the week and avoid getting any sort of injury?
I was very paranoid all week. I was training. I thought I was training the house down on Thursday, and I was running right through everyone. I'm like, geez, I'm feeling good tonight. And then I spoke to Sal afterwards, and he's like, no, everyone was running away from you. They didn't want to be the one. But it was good. I had second thoughts all week, like, oh God, what have I done? What have I done? And leading up to the game, the nerves actually got me really hard. Like, I was having a few practice shots, and I literally forgot my set shot routine. Missed the first couple of goals I would have slotted all year, but then, we got there in the end. It was amazing.
It's been a fantastic story to follow, certainly in the back half of the year, as the numbers have built, and we've all speculated, we've all had some fun, and full credit to Richmond Central. The social media coverage has been great. Everybody's got on board and really embraced this chapter of you kicking 100. You talked about the nerves involved with that. Obviously, everyone around the club and then even around the VAFA are starting to get involved in ton watch, and it's sort of taken on a bit of a life of its own this year. How have you handled all of that? At what stage did you kind of start to get a little bit swept up in it from a club perspective, and people are starting to say to you, hey mate, I hear about ton watch, you're on the road to a ton?
Yeah, it was probably around like that little blitz we had against Swinburne, Ely Park, Chadstone. It's been pretty surreal because I'm a pretty quiet guy around the club, and not much presence on social media, and it started to get a bit out of hand, but it's been awesome.
And just on the goal itself, Jake, it's interesting when you ask players and you talk to players about their on-field experiences. Some players, for them, it's all a blur and they don't remember what happens on game day, and for others, it's vivid. What are your memories of actually kicking the goal itself?
It's pretty funny, actually, because I missed a couple of easy goals and I was starting to get in my head about, parking the bus a week before. I had the set shot and I was going down. And I remember thinking, how am I going to go from being in such a crappy mood and to be elated in a matter of seconds? But then it all went up like straight away once I kicked the goal. And then everyone came rushing towards me. It was a feeling I won't forget.
And was one of those everyone's Joey Pignataro?
Surely. I didn't see him on the video, but he is short, so I figured he must have been in the middle of the scrum.
No, I didn't see anyone.
Oh, come on, Pignataro.
There you come, Joseph.
Well, Jake, congratulations, mate. We've all had so much fun and enjoyed your ascent to the ton this year. I'm sure it's a season of footy you'll never forget. Thanks very much for joining us on For the Love of the Game.
No, thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Wonderful performance from Jake Dillon. It's been a lot of fun following along on Ton Watch this year. He moves to 101 with those 2 goals on the weekend. Blake Williams from Box Hill North has been kicking plenty of goals in the seniors in that same section. He kicked another 8 on the weekend. He's up to 85 for the year. Jordan Hessline is on 70 from the Parkdale Vultures. Then Luke Ashen from Oakleigh on 69. Jacob McElroy on 62 from St Mary's St Legions. Then Tom Callick from Old Ivanhoe on 60. And Jack Hall from Old Yarra Cobras also on 60. Our leading women, Indiana Harrison booted 4 on the weekend, so she's kicked clear. She's now 3 goals clear on 49 in the Ormond Seniors. Georgia Harris from Port Melbourne Chargers kicked 1. She'll finish her season on 46. Georgia Cropley also won from St Mary's St Legions on 45. And Hannah Smith from St Kevin's kicked 9 on the weekend. She's
Hannah.
back in the mix at 44. So 49 Indiana Harrison, 46 Georgia Harris, 45 Georgia Cropley, and 44 Hannah Smith. Our big bags for the weekend. There was only one double figure. It was Tom Wilson from Albert Park Seniors.
Oh, Tommy.
Tommy booted 10. Hannah Smith, as I just mentioned, kicked 9 for St Kevin's. Sam Collins from Old Brighton Reserves booted 8, as did Hayden Boyce for Mazenod Seniors. Liam Thomas, as we mentioned earlier, for Old Camberwell, kicked 8. And then Blake Williams, as I just said, from Box Hill North, 8 for him as well.
I actually owe Tom Wilson a coffee because in the Big V game where he went up to Bendigo, there was a 50 given away that I called was committed by him. It was actually Jackson Hill. So apologies to Tommy if you're listening, and well done on the bag.
And he'll be swinging around to grab that coffee at some stage.
Correct.
Before we get to tips, it's time for grand final previews. It's exciting. Great time of the year. This Sunday, our very first Premiership Cups will be hoisted for 2025. We've got 6 thirds men's grand finals, all taking place on Sunday. We've got one at Preston City Oval, 9:20 Sunday morning. Thirds Division 5, it's MHSOB versus Wattle Park. MHSOB finished 2 games clear of Ajax, got the week off. Wattle Park started in Division 4, then regraded to Division 5. They finished 3rd. They defeated Ajax, progressed to face MHSOB in the second semi-final. You might remember that game was abandoned when Wattle Park skipper Connor Rogers was taken by ambulance during the second quarter with a nasty leg injury. Yep. And at that stage, the Animals were actually leading by 14 points at the time. But because the game hadn't reached half-time, it was officially abandoned. And because MHSOB were the high-ranked team, they got straight through to the grand final. Now, Wattle Park had to play in the prelim. They beat Hawthorn by 19 points. And so these two teams come back together again, MHSOB and Wattle Park. They've met twice already this year, and Wattle Park won them both. 3 points in round 11, and then, they led by 14 points in the second semi when the game was abandoned in the first half. So interesting times ahead. That's going to be a very interesting game. That Thirds Division 5 game, Sunday 9:20, Preston City Oval, MHSOB and Wattle Park. We then have a doubleheader at Box Hill City Oval Sunday, 11:40, Thirds Division 4, OMs and Collegians, followed by Thirds Division 3, St Bede's Mentone Tigers and St Kevin's at about 2:30 in the afternoon. In that Division 4 game, OMs have won their last 12. Their last loss was May 10. They've had 5 triple-digit wins. They've been dominant in Thirds Division 4. Collegians have won 3 of their last 5. And in the St Bede's Mentone St Kevin's matchup, St Bede's finished second, St Kevin's finished third. St Bede's have won their last 4. St Kevin's have won 5 of their last 6. Scob with the big win in their only meeting this year. Then the other 3 games are a triple header right here at Alstonwick Park, and it's a Zabs triple header. Thirds Division 2. It kicks off at 9:20 Sunday, so 9:20, 12 o'clock into 2:30, the 3 games. Thirds Division 2 will be Old Zabs 5 versus Old Carey. Thirds Division 1 will be Old Zabs 4 versus Old Trinity. And Thirds Premier Men's will be Old Zabs versus Ajax, Sunday at 2:30. Zabs finishing 4 games clear of Ajax. They beat them by 6 goals in the second semi. Ajax then beat St Bernard's by a couple of kicks in the preliminary final. But the interesting thing is these are clearly the 2 best teams in the comp. They've only lost to each other since the mid-season. So Zabs have won their last 6, but the last loss was to Ajax by 57 points. Ajax have won 9 of their last 10, and their only loss was to Zabs in the second semi. So that might be a closer game than the 4 games clear on top of the ladder suggests. Old Zabs and Ajax on Sunday, 2:30, Alstonwick Park. So best of luck to everyone playing in those 6 grand finals, and we look forward to celebrating those premiers next week.
Yeah, geez, I had a look at Alstonwick Park as I walked into the podcast studio today in ripping nick as well.
Fantastic
so
condition.
Hopefully we can get the weather to stay away and a good weekend of footy all round.
Triple header coming up there on Sunday. Tips time. Again, I was sort of expecting a sting, Paddy. Where's the... give us something.
I do have a story about the sting. So in light of Jake Dillon's big ton, I spent all week working on this incredible sting. Like I'm talking broadcast level. And I woke up this morning, put my USB in the car, parked it at work, went and got a coffee, and then went to drive here. And I did see a man black of hair, about 5'3", 5'4", jogging down the street. And I noticed that someone had been through my car and had stolen my USB.
You said this guy has some Bernard scarf on.
Correct.
Pig Nataro.
And he was running quick. Like he looked like he could go all day. I think he was on kilometre of 28 out of about 34 for the afternoon. But my USB's gone missing, and as such, no ton sting, no tip
that'd
sting.
Be right, the Grinch.
Come on, Joey.
Premier Men's round 17 tips. Let's start with, it's an 8-tip lead to you, Patrick, because you actually tipped 8-7 last week. So you extended your lead. You picked a perfect 5 from 5 and then 3 from 5 in the Premier Men's. So round 18 tips. Let's kick it off with Fitzroy and Old Melburnians.
This will be Fitzroy's 3rd win of the season. They're going to salute at home as they head down to Premier C. And they're going to farewell Travis Ronaldson as well this weekend. A big congratulations to Travis. He won a few A-grade games last year. It hasn't worked out in 2025 for him or the footy club, but still a remarkable and historical achievement for the Fitzroy Footy Club in his time in charge.
Yes, got to speak to Travis a couple of times last year and a very lovely coach, and we wish him the best. I'm going to go Old Melburnians with this one, Paddy. So right out the gates, we're splitting ways.
That's what we need. Old Camberwell versus Willie CYMS. What a game this is. It's probably you know what? Let's come back to it. Hampton Rovers and Old Ivanhoe. Let's start there.
Old Ivanhoe.
Yeah, I'm going to go Old Ivanhoe here.
Old Carey and Old Geelong.
I'm going to go with Old Carey.
I'm going to go Old Geelong.
Just to be contrary, or because you think they can win?
I saw them on the road a couple of weeks ago, and they were outstanding.
They did beat Old Ivanhoe a couple of weeks ago.
They're capable of beating anyone in this competition.
Absolutely, they're a chance.
Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Trinity.
250 start this one. God. Caulfield by enough. I think the VFL players that they have brought in are very, very good. Not all of them will qualify, but they are going to be handy in round 18.
I'm liking Old Trinity. I'll go with them.
Old Trinity can't move, so they know they're playing Old Ivanhoe, and I think Caulfield probably will have to win. So I think the Fields get over the line. That's my logic. So come on, Sats.
And we come back to Old Camberwell and Willie CYMS, which is no easy to tip them the first time I asked you 2 minutes ago.
No. Well, if I'm going with the Old Carey win, it will not be Williamstown CYMS into the 4, even if they do win. I think they will win this game of footy, the CYs. I think with Jordan Buzzertool and Harry Miller back into the squad, Will Bockmer also returned. Aidan McCarroll and Zach Provost are flying. And I think their form line doesn't indicate how close they've been. I think they get it done over the Wellers, even on the road.
Yeah, I'm going to tip Williamstown as well for this one.
Let's talk William Buck Premier Men's. We'll come back to the 2 critical games. Let's start with...
Make them wait.
Let's start with Old Zabs versus Uni Blacks.
Old Zabs for me.
Yeah, old Zabs as well.
Collegians and De La Salle.
Collegians.
There's a bit in this for D-La, but Collegians have been very good despite their form line. So yes, I'm going to back them here.
Uni Blues versus Old Brighton at Melbourne Uni. Do the Blues go out with a bang and make a statement?
I think the Blues, the fight might have gone out of them at 3/4 time against the Old Zaverians. I think the Tunners win.
Yeah, I'm going to go Old Brighton as well.
Sorry, Matty Smith, after speaking to him pretty much every day for the last 2 weeks.
So Collegians win, according to you guys, which means St Bernard's have to beat St Kevin's to stay up in Premier Men's. It is going to be our community TV doubleheader from 11:35 on Saturday morning. Reserves into seniors. Can the Snow Dogs upset Scob and remain in Premier Men's?
If there is to be an upset this weekend, this is going to be the one. If they played like they did last week, St Bernard's, they'd beat anyone in the competition. So that's just got to be the instruction from Steve Alessio. Just do what you did last week. And I reckon they will.
Wow, okay.
I'm not going to follow you in, Matty. I'm going to back Anthony Lynch and his boys to get it done. They don't like to take the foot off the gas to the Scobbers.
Which brings us to our pre-elimination final. 1:45 SEN Match of the Day on vafa.com.au. You can watch the stream live and free from Princes Park. Old Haileybury versus Old Scotch. The winner is in, the loser is done.
I am not going to be popular in South Caulfield. Old Scotch. And they're going to play finals against St Kevin's in that cutthroat in a couple of weeks' time. That's going to be one of the games of the year, I reckon.
Can they win the flag?
I think they can. They have done it before from outside the 2.
Yep, with the 2 contrasting forms coming into it and with Old Scotch getting a glut of stars back, I'm going to tip them to win this match, which means, like Paddy, I'm predicting St Kevin's Old Scotch semi-final.
So your final 4 will be Old Brighton, Old Zabs, St Kevin's and Old Scotch.
Spot on.
And your 2 relegation teams differ. Paddy, you have St Bernard's
correct.
And D-La going down. Matty, you have Collegians and D-La going down.
Yep, correct.
What a weekend of footy it's going to be.
Remarkable. Good luck to Play HQ. Hopefully everything holds up, but ensure that you do make your way to vafa.com.au and check out these games as they happen for the broadcast, because it's going to be a special weekend of footy.
Good luck to everyone who's playing actual finals. Good luck to everyone who's playing virtual finals. There seems to be just as many of those this weekend. It's going to be an unbelievable weekend of footy. We can't wait to break it all down next week with you right here for the love of the game.